Here we are. Truth time, everybody, on the TruthWire. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you very much. I am one of your hosts, good-looking, smart 21, Greg Pasta Jardula. Yeah. I say smart because I'm smart enough to talk with my microphone unmuted.
They know what I was saying.
What did you say, fam? Can't read your lips. And you were looking down.
Yeah, I was looking down because then I looked up and I spoke. You're not my director, fam. If you want to be my director, you can apply somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is not that kind of show.
Everybody knows who watches the TruthWire, who watched the Convo Couch and watched for many years. They know who wears the pants in the family. Fiorella, let's get with the show, guys. We got a lot of stuff going on today. It's going to be a crazy show. There's so much happening. You know, sometimes I say to myself, well, it's the same old bullshit that, you know, we're spinning in this hamster wheel. What are we going to talk about on the show? That wasn't the case for today's show, fam, because over the weekend stuff was popping off. And I guess you better be careful for what you wish for, huh? Craig Pasta Jardula saying, I wanted the people from Peru and Bolivia from the outskirts to come on in and take the government. And here they are. But there has been a direct kind of pivot in paying attention to Latin America from the American empire. If there was only a show, fam, who told people out there that Donald Trump and his administration were there to pivot towards Latin America, if there were only a show out there that would have warned the people months, if not years ago, fam, that would be so great, wouldn't it, fam?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been great, but
that was us.
Yeah, it's always been us, you know.
Death the Tyrants is in the house, fam, and he's talking about how good I look. Thank you, Death the Tyrants. Appreciate it. Feeling good, Winthrop. Let me just start off by saying that, fam, the things that are going to be kind of questioned and talked about, right? I'm going to write an article. I've been working on it. How the populist right, the anti-Zionist that conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, right? Those people, why they are being lifted up, why there's so many views for them, right? Why Dan Bilzerian and Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, you know, why they're getting all these views, because not, you know, they're not talking about anything new. This is stuff that I think the anti-imperialist left was talking about for years. You know, you did a show with Cynthia McKinney, 4 years ago, talking about what happened in her experiences with the flotilla. That might have been 5 years ago. It was a while ago. But there were people who were talking about what the Zionist entity was doing many years ago. Now you have these people, and they seem to be getting all the credit. And I think a lot of people out there are going, you're just mad that they're getting the attention. You know, Pasta, you always say, who cares who gets the attention? As long as the issue comes to the forefront of the people and they get to see it, that's what matters. And I do feel that way, right? I don't give a shit sometimes about who gets the credit, but sometimes I do. Why? Because we've learned over the last several years. For instance, I'll use an example. Steve Bannon, during the COVID era, had on some of the greatest doctors, the greatest people, some of the greatest work. They win your trust over. But where does he go? He moves you down this rabbit hole where everything is to be blamed on China, and this is what's going on. So you got to look at those people who are winning you over, and then look at some of the other decisions they are made. I can think about two people in particular right now, but I'm not going to mention their names, who seem to be like hardcore leftists, but then they'll support other issues and other people that make no sense, right? The reason why we have to look at all these people like Dan Bilzerian, Myron Gaines, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens and stuff is because even though they're anti-Zionist, and let's forget about the fact that they conflate Stu Peters, they conflate Zionism with anti-Semitism, right? Like I always say, you don't fight bigotry with more bigotry. Let's put that aside for a second. Look at what they are pro in as well. All of these people are hardcore pro-capitalist. They're anti-collectivist, anti-socialist. They don't believe in any of that stuff, right? They believe in capitalism. They talk about communism, how it's being so bad. They are also all anti-immigrant. They don't recognize the immigrants coming over here as the reason, the byproduct or the result of what the empire is doing. And we know this firsthand what the empire is doing in Latin America and why they're forcing so many people to come here and get out of here, get out of those countries and come to America where the dollar is printed, you know? So when you see all these people that are getting all this attention and all these numbers right now, remember what they are anti. They want to do what Fiorella has talked about when they make America look like a victim to Israel, right? So they want to be able to, Leandra Johnny, she's another one, a friend of mine, right? I talked to her at the Third Eye Carnival. We sat down. We talked about the Bolshevik Revolution. We talked about what it is. These people will never, ever let you believe that a class struggle could come to fruition, right? They don't ever want you to believe that the Bolshevik Revolution was a peasant uprising. Same thing in Nicaragua. That's why they always bastardize the Sandinistas, fam. And it is this Western kind of goggles about how they look at socialism or collectivism. And they're doing that right now with Iran, right? The anti-statism. So when you see these people on the right that are getting all this attention, I'm not mad that they're getting the attention for being anti-Zionist. Even though I've said plain and simple, they also justify the state of Israel, talking out and conflating anti-Zionism and anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. It's what they are pro. They are hardcore pro-capitalist, anti-immigrant. They don't want any form of universal health care or anything that can be beneficial to the people. In fact, if they can shake Israel, they'll go right back to the status quo, and they will justify the empires. And they're also hardcore Christian, which is a problem too, because it's not real Christianity. It's this kind of like, oh, we have to fight against communism, which is part of which was created by the Jews. We have to fight against Islam, which is awful. So you have to look where they're steering you with these people out there, fam. Go ahead and jump in. I think you've shared the show enough, and you can say some things.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's get started. We'll have a guest soon. There's a lot happening in Latin America. There's a lot of happening all over the world. I mean, that we cannot be everywhere at once. We're not going to be able to discuss Russia today, but there's a lot happening in Russia. I've been discussing it on and off, but let's start with Latin America right now. It was already confirmed that there's going to be 2 candidates moving forward in Peru. So we can go with the first tweet from Telesur. Okay, so it's a definitive second round. You're going to have the right-wing, ultra-right-wing Keiko Fujimori going against Roberto Sanchez, who's on the left. They're going to go head-to-head. This is a major election because it is 2 people who are diametrically opposed pretty much on everything, right? And Roberto Sanchez has been rising in the polls. He has been getting a lot of momentum, particularly because people are noticing what is happening in Pisac and Cusco with the incoming of Zionists. They're noticing the trend of attacks in Latin America, not just Venezuela and Cuba, but also what's happening now in Bolivia. Everything that's been happening in Bolivia, we're going to go into in a little bit later on the show. But I'm starting off with Peru because the election is coming up this June, so in a couple weeks, and really it will be definitive for a lot of reasons, for the fact that we are seeing counter uprisings that are uniting people against the U.S. Zionist takeover. So people who previously maybe didn't make the connection of why U.S.-backed candidates are not so great are watching what's happening throughout Latin America with the infiltrations of Israel as well as Zionism. And they're saying, okay, I may not agree with Evo Morales, or I may not agree with, far left, but the Zionists have to get out of here, right? So we're seeing this different shift in regard to that. The second thing, if we can bring up, Jayme, if you're still there, if you can bring up the second tweet, the second one after this one. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so this says confirmation Roberto Sanchez from the left movement of Pedro Castillo's will head to the second round versus Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of the ex-dictator from the far right. The elections will be this June 7th, and the left candidate has already promised that his first action as president will be to pardon Pedro Castillo, who suffered a coup d'etat by the coup-mongering right. So that is a huge element. He also wants to bring about a new constitution. He also wants to do a lot of reforms, very heavily focused outside of Lima. He has already come out and said he wants the debates to not be in Lima because the majority of his support is actually outside. He's coming from the with the rural support, right? And so these are very, very different ways the country could go. Now, of course, Peru's Congress is a problem. We have had 9 presidents in a decade. It is insane. We might get rid of this one. That's one of the temporary presidents, and there is a lack of stability in the country in terms of political stability, right?
Can I say something about that really quick?
Yeah.
I just want to throw it in, and I'll let you keep going. I don't mean to cut you off, but when you say that there's a problem in the parliament, the constitution, the body, what do you,
Congress.
The Congress, what is it, a parliament or Congress or whatever
it's Congress.
It's a Congress, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing, right? Whatever it is, that particular body always seems to go aside and join sides with the empire. We saw last time when Pedro Castillo got jailed, less than 2 days later, the CIA showed up. I forgot her name, but she was like patting the conservative part of the Congress that obviously was more aligned with Keiko Fujimori on the back, like it's okay. The Peruvians came in from the outer skirts. They kind of stopped everything, kind of slowed everything down, but then they went back, and the status quo of the government, the Congress ruled again. I don't believe we're going to have any changes in Peru that are going to be permanent until what we see is happening in Bolivia happen in Peru. Because it's just been happened time and time and time again. You get a new leftist president there, somebody who's going to think about nationalizing the lithium, but no, you can't do that, and that person's in jail. I would also bet that the first action that Roberto Sanchez Palomino will take if he is elected president, if they don't stop him because he's such a threat, is that he will annul, right? He will wipe out the sentence of Pedro Castillo and he'll be released. That's what I believe. But please, I don't know if you feel that way, fam, but I don't want to see the same movie over and over again with Roberto Sanchez Palomino being jailed for trying to fight for the indigenous people of Peru.
I mean, yeah, that's what could likely happen just because the Congress has all the power. And, and the thing is, Keiko Fujimori, like we were told by many people when you were here, and we talked to many people, pretty much runs the country already through the Congress. That, the president right now is being pretty much positioned as having no power. We saw that with the F-16 fighter jets that they were forced to take, essentially, and the Blackhawks. We've seen it with the different appeals to the Trump administration, to the United States. This is a U.S. Very much intrinsically linked country. However, China's presence is also here, which is why this is becoming a hotspot of debate. So before we bring in our guests, I want to bring up the next images, because I don't think people are really watching what's happening here because there's so much happening everywhere else. But this could greatly influence a lot of things. So Roberto Sanchez called Balcazar a puppet president. The one who governs is Miss Fujimori. We've heard this many times, Pasta. Yeah. The presidential candidate mentioned that in the purchase of F-16 planes, Fujimorismo imposed its decision over that of the head of state. Okay, so that is something that I think we can talk about with our guests. The second thing I want to show image here is how, I think it's the next one, if you can pull that up, Jayme. The next tweet. So this is another subject I want to discuss, is the thousands and hundreds of thousands of land that were given by Malay to the Zionists, essentially. And so a lot of people are talking about the takeover of Argentina. Well, this is, of course, the Isaac Accords coming into play. And combined with the Isaac Accords, you have the America Shields Plan, which is a takeover of Latin America by the United States. So all of these are circling Latin American countries, and we're going to see the results of all of that, right? And I think it's important for us to point out a couple of things. Roberto Sanchez has gained huge momentum. I don't think I was able to put it in here. There it is. So yeah. So this is the one, Jayme. I don't know if you have it, but it was just a picture of Roberto Sanchez, this one right here, where you can see he had a lot of support in a town. I think it was called Punta, this one, yeah. Punta
click on the
Piedra.
picture itself, Jayme.
And you can see, or this is via El Salvador, but he was also in Punta Piedra.
He's still wearing that Castillo hat. I love that.
Yeah. So there's thousands of people showed up, and he basically said, from Villa El Salvador, with the popular force of the people of Lima, we know that we can take down poverty, insecurity, civil insecurity, and the criminal pact that today has in its hands the Congress that has captured the system of justice and democracy. So he's getting a lot of support. I think his support will grow based on the fact that we have a lot of sentiments against Zionism and right now against the United States. It is very clear what the United States is doing throughout Latin America. They are going country by country and essentially capturing them, making them vassals. We're seeing very devastating things in Venezuela that I think there's still a lot left to be discussed on that. We're seeing the threat against Cuba. We're seeing Bolivia push back against repression and the theft of their lithium, right? So we're seeing this happen. And really, you're right. Bolivia is leading the way in all of this. So that's where Peru's at right now. Anything to say before we bring in our guests?
No, I just want to remind everybody that on Wednesday, Danny Shaw will be here to talk about these things too as well. We'll have a lot of people coming on in to discuss these matters. We said when we were out in Peru that this is the next hunting ground. This is the fourth industrial revolution. This is the American empire trying to expand. They want to take the resources within these countries for themselves and then overturn and cause chaos while making sure they're still dependent on the dollar. It's the same playbook, but it's happening right before our eyes. It's just a different mineral now, right? It's not about just going after the oil. It's about in the energy. It's about going after the lithium, the cobalt, all the rare earth minerals that are there. They want that for themselves. The United States is going to show up, and the only way this stops is what we're seeing in Bolivia. And I think that we can see that in Peru next, and I'm hoping we can. So, there's a lot of nuances that take place, right? When it comes to Pedro Castillo and when it comes to Roberto Sanchez Palomino, I think because people want to also say that Roberto Sanchez Palomino, he betrayed Pedro Castillo. And I was always kind of wondering when we were in Peru, when we saw Pedro Castillo, why he was so kind of hesitant towards making an alignment with Venezuela. There's a reason for that, I believe. But I'm interested to see what Paulo has to say. So I think let's just bring in our guest. There's a lot going on. You're watching the TruthWire, guys. All the links down below to help out independent media are there. If you can do so, thank you. We love you. If you can't, you're not in a position financially, just share the show. Let's get to it.
All right, so let's go ahead and bring in Paulo, known as the Peruvian Chusky. He's a journalist, organizer, and co-founder of Los Ronderos de las Redes. Paulo, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Hey. It's great to see you, Pasta and Fiorella. It's been so long since I was back on your show, since the start of the coup, of course, back in 2022. And of course, a lot has happened. Now we're in the time period of the presidential elections, and we're just in since December 2022 in crisis mode. Throughout this time, with the shifting governments, we've had 3 interim puppet presidents, from Dina Boluarte, then Jose Herri, and then now Jose Maria Bacazar. So let's get started to talking about this. And one more thing, I love that you mentioned Danny Shaw. He's my favorite professor.
Yeah, he's
so,
great.
So that to him.
He's great.
It's great. We have you, and then we have him on Wednesday. So we're really making our way, unfortunately, throughout Latin America because it seems the entirety of the region is under attack. Like I said, both by the Isaac Accords and the America Shields. This is a direct attack on sovereignty. It's a direct attack, of course, on the peoples of the region, especially the indigenous people that have come out, of course, mostly trying to do something to stand up to the theft of the resources, which of course are very important, as Pasta mentions, for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We're talking about the lithium, but one of the other things is water, right? We're seeing the attack towards the Amazon, which is, of course, the Earth's lungs, and we're seeing a lot of these things that are going to be fought for water as well as other resources. So just right off the bat, it's official now. Roberto Sanchez will face Keiko Fujimori in the next election. How do you see that election going in? You're Peruvian, you know the strong neoliberal right-wing sentiments in Lima, you know the corruption in the Congress, and how people are just so scared of the specter of communism, and they consider anybody to the left of Keiko a communist. How do you see this election playing out soon?
Well, my compatriots back in our homeland are saying that it's going to be worse than the first round. Of how we saw it, it took very much more than a month, almost more than a month, finally getting 100% of the votes verified and counted. And we had, of course, the third candidate in this this race, Porky, he goes by, Rafael Lopez Aliaga, just screaming out loud and everything to his followers, to his supporters, that, oh, I fraude, and we're going to have an insurrection, un insurgencia, and to overthrow the actual will of the people's votes, no matter how they voted. And so they went to the ONPE, the electoral board building, and to drive people crazily, fanatically, just against the official results, and build their own false narrative, and to even kick out Roberto Sanchez off the second place back then. And so they were trying to annul some of his votes in the countryside where he achieved a lot, and that's how he got to second place in this runoff. But yeah, with Keiko, we've known her to be a lot of things. Electorally, she's running for the fourth time for presidency. She is comparable to the Filipinos. Bongbong Marcos Jr., her father, can be compared to the Marcos Sr. These are dictatorial, genocidal presidents that instituted martial law and such, and of course systemic corruption. It came about from their time period in power. Fujimori, just like other ultra-right political figures throughout the Americas, throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, study abroad. They are much privileged than the average Peruvian to study in the United States or even in Europe, and of course they obtain the same degrees in the same private elite universities to bring back to their homeland the same ideology as the Chicago Boys, as the neoliberal school of thoughts, and so that's how we have Javier Milei and other figures like that in power right now. And so she is representative of the entire geopolitically, the entire U.S.-aligned candidacy throughout Latin America. And last year, I was visiting in December 2024 to February 2025 in Peru and Bolivia, and these were my last time in Peru, but living for 2 months there. And then I returned to Bolivia during the presidential election in August in the first round. And so I got to see how it was back then, before Rodrigo Paz was coming to power over there. But any other questions?
Well, yeah. Let me ask you a question. So we're looking at this election. We were there. We witnessed it on the ground. It's set up to be easy, transparent, and really efficient. That's what it's supposed to happen. The way everything takes place. Everybody has to go to their designated precinct. They have to show ID. They go and vote. They have ballots on the table, a certain amount. Whatever's in the ballot box, they have to have equal number after. They pull them out and count in front of everybody. The thing that made me a little bit kind of suspicious, like we were trying to figure out what was going on the whole time. Arriaga, aka Porky, and if you ever see him, ladies and gentlemen, I think we showed a picture of him before. He looks like Porky. He embraced that title, fat white guy. And when people talk about how sometimes race is weaponized in the United States by the Democrats so they can use it, right? To get people just to get to their tribe. you witness real racism in Latin America when you see this kind of supporting of this white, European looking Latin America and their group and how they look at the indigenous people. There really is that kind of culture going on. And that's a real form of racism that's not looked upon. However, getting back to the question about the election, we saw a lot of issues. However, Porky blamed the left all the time. He never blamed Keiko. He never blamed the institution itself. He was blaming specifically the left. And I was trying to figure out, well, how can you blame the left? The majority of power within Congress is held by Keiko and her party. If anybody's to blame for this, right, it would be her. But it seems like they did this on purpose so they could provide themselves an avenue in which, because now we heard on the back of this too as well, last week they were blaming, a couple days ago I think it was, right, fam? They were blaming Roberto Sanchez Palomino of fraud, right? So now it seems like they've done all these things so they can provide themselves an avenue, knowing that Roberto Sanchez Palomino at the very least was going to lock up second place because of his support in the indigenous areas. Do you suspect that this was done so they can provide an avenue to protest now? Maybe to manufacture some consent from people within Lima to say, look, they've actually cheated Porky over here because he would have gotten those votes. But a lot of the places that didn't open up were in the poor parts of Lima. We were in San Juan Miraflores, which is a very poor area where Porky might have still gotten a lot of votes, but so would have Roberto Sanchez in those areas. What do you suspect with this election? The reason you just mentioned it took almost a month to count this. I mean, there was a lot of bad stuff going on in that election that didn't make a lot of sense. To me, just watching them trying to blame Sanchez Palomino was how they tipped their hat. It's like, they were providing themselves an avenue to do what they want to do, and that's to make sure that Roberto Sanchez or the indigenous people don't have any power within Lima.
Yes. You're right, said Pasta. You know that there have been irregularities with this election. First of all, I have experience working in elections here in the state of California. I am professionally a poll worker when it comes to election season, and I see how they have mail-in ballots. They have up to 11 days ahead of election day to vote in early. You have more rights. You can get your ballot in multiple languages if you need it. And so there's a lot of flexibility here in the state of California, here in the United States. But in Peru, just like in Brazil, Australia, Bolivia, you're mandated to vote. Otherwise, you pay a fine. In the diaspora, it's not that much of a case to do so. And so here in the diaspora, I voted in the area of Los Angeles. I drove up there with my parents to go vote in person. We didn't see that much of people coming out to vote, unfortunately. I think it's a case to be for the second round. We came across, as an organizer in the Peruvian community here in the diaspora, for my organization, Los Renderos Las Redes, we are seeing that many of the young Peruvians that are anti-Fujimoristas are not, they don't have their dual citizenship or, their Peruvian documents. And so they support our cause, but, they're focusing on other issues such as the struggle against ICE, the Trump administration, the whole political system here in the United States, supporting Palestine and so forth. But yeah, here back in Peru, we did see some of those types of irregularities in, as you mentioned, in San Juan and Miraflores. And this is in the outskirts of Lima. It is not the literal Miraflores where it's in with their coastal elites are, with the shopping malls are.
It's not where I do where I bought my Adidas and did some karaoke in Miraflores. It's San Juan Miraflores, which is in the hills.
Yeah. And so the people live in what in Brazil is called the favelas, the slums. These are much more rural. In Peru, there's a literal apartheid wall recognized by the United Nations as such. And so this separates the rich and poor. And of course, the poor lived in the mountain range, and they had to day by day and climb up and come down. A fleet of stairs to get to top of the mountain hill. And so, they're always struggling. And so, with this election point, it was, of course, certain to be that type of complications, despite it being the first time that we've had a actual election since 2021. And there were some people that were arguing for elections to come through earlier in 2022, 2023, when the protests, the national strikes were happening. Some people were arguing that we should have the elections come forward now so we can vote out the Fujimoristas, all these corrupt people in power in Congress, and to remove the interim puppet dictator, Dina Boluarte. But at the same time, others were supporting the idea of reinstituting the freedom of Pedro Castillo, so he can be back in power and to complete his mission, his objective to establish a constituent assembly for a new political constitution, to get to Peru out of the 1993 political constitution, which I've seen all 12 of these documents in the Congressional building. These are the current one is similar to the time period of the 1970s, when Pinochet came to power and instituted what the U.S. wanted, what the CIA wanted, a neoliberal shock therapy. And so this is what Chile is still fighting for when it came to Gabriel Boric, which the populists did not voted in majority, unfortunately. And so this is still an ongoing battle in South America to establish an actual representative anti-colonial government that is sovereign, and
Paulo,
speaks to the will of people. Yeah.
I just have a question, since you're talking about the
Yes.
Constitution. Is there a possibility that with what's happening in Bolivia, there is more mobilization from in Peru, with what we've seen about the Zionists coming in? We've seen people mobilize against that. We've seen people organized for Palestine, not just in Lima this past weekend, but also, in Cusco and Pisac, in these regions. Is there a possibility that with what's happening in Bolivia, do you think that there could be more of a push towards organizing against the U.S.-Israeli, takeover, is what it seems, because it's becoming quite clear, I think, to a lot of people that the sovereignty of these countries, particularly Peru right now, it goes beyond this election, right? It's clearly, there are clearly a lot of things riding on it, but there's also, beyond the election, there's these plans. We saw that Evo Morales said that there were accusations that there was a plan to assassinate and kidnap him. And we saw the leaked documents from Ali Vargas on this that were coming from the police forces in Bolivia. So there's clearly plans to really attack any sort of resistance movement in Latin America. And in Latin America, the only resistance movements that exist are in the indigenous communities, where we don't see any, other resistance coming from the more affluent areas or the more, non-indigenous areas of Peru. Do you think that there's a possibility this could spread, or what exactly is going on in the rural areas of Peru that you could speak about that could potentially come into play?
Yeah. Fam, are you asking if the Bolivians can inspire the Peruvians to do the same thing? Because that's what we really want.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be nice. But...
Yeah. So thank you for this important question. We are seeing within this region of South America, from Ecuador to Peru, all the way down to Chile and Argentina, and now Bolivia, and even in parts of Brazil that are, we're seeing the anti-colonial indigenous resistance rising up throughout the time of Donald Trump's presidency. And so with Donald Trump coming back into power in the second term, we're seeing the rapid increased military growth of joint exercises with our puppet governments, and as well as the this global arms trade that the U.S. is the biggest supplier of, along with Israel as well. Purchasing that Peru and other governments are purchasing and from these governments. They're getting Israeli Elbit systems of weapons, and they're also getting the warplanes from the U.S. Because the special privilege that Trump recognized is that for Peru, it's a major non-NATO member ally, just like Israel is in this region of South America. And it used to be that Colombia that Colombia was called the Israel of the Americas. And so not anymore with Gustavo Petro, and that's why they were with the Honduras Gate. They were seeking trying to interfere with the upcoming elections, which is on May 31st in Colombia. So to get back to your question, yeah, we're seeing a lot of these protests and these national strikes. We need a united force. We need the recognition that it's not only in Bolivia, but it's also the still-led protests in Peru, in Chile, and Argentina that are really at the forefront. They're of course much more radical. They're talking about Palestine, but for the rest of the population, the daily struggles that needs to be recognized and put at the forefront in their battles is much more important to the rest of the indigenous populations. In the countryside for Peru, for example, it's not being talked about enough, but there are indigenous communities that have faced just complete abandonment by the Peruvian states. These are regions that still, as you can expect in many parts of the global south, that still do not have potable water that is drinkable. They use the Amazonian River, which of course that gets contaminated by the transnational corporations that are mining and drilling, polluted with the mercury and with the spilled oil, and so they get the effects of the of higher cancer rates and mortality and such. And they have no other choice but to use that water, and so their children bathe in it, and so forth. Of course, as well for electricity, they don't have electricity in 24 hours, unlike Lima, a capital city where the whole wealth, the educational business opportunities are all concentrated in. Lima is historically been a port city for the Viceroyalty of Peru during the colonial era, where they extracted all the gold and other important riches of Peru that were brought to Madrid, Spain, for the wealth of the colonial power at the time. And so it still functions in the same way. We have the conquistadors. The new ones are, of course, the transnational corporations from North America, from Canada and United States. There's a U.S. corporation called Lithium American Corp that has access to two mines in Peru, in South East Peru, near the Bolivia's border and Chile. This is in the region where there's a massive deposit of uranium that is underdeveloped. And so if they tap into that, they would be able to become like how France extracted the natural resources of the Sahel, of the uranium deposits. And if you all recall, in February of this year, the U.S. and Russia already ended their last remaining international treaty, the START program, when it comes to the nuclear arms treaties, to armistice, to stop building up their nuclear weapons. And so there is no more of that type of treaty, and we're already in a World War III scenario. It's not World War III for us in here in the global north, but it is for Palestinians, for Lebanese, for Iranians, for the Africans in the Congo and Sudan, and other places in the global south that face the colonial violence and the imperial occupation all over.
Yeah. How united is the working class in the indigenous areas of Peru? We did see some disparities between, we heard, I don't know if they were true because I've never gotten out there. Fam says she's going to get out to Cusco sooner or later. But we never heard, we did hear rumblings that Roberto Sanchez Palomino at one time turned his back on Pedro Castillo. And I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. I've just heard, what we in the Navy used to call scuttlebutt, which is just rumors. But how united is the working class? Because I think that right now what we're seeing in Bolivia is a big thumb in the eye to the people who said, well, there was such a split between Evo and Arce that's going to really fracture the indigenous and working class in Bolivia. But here they are. They've showed up. What is it like in Peru? What have you witnessed between the separations? Because Roberto Sanchez Palomino has been wearing that Pedro Castillo hat. He hasn't stopped. And despite the rumors we heard about the split between the working class in Peru, what are you witnessing and what are you seeing? Is there a big unification? And can we, can expect them to stay united? Because this is going to get hairy as we get closer to the second round.
Yes, I would say that they are much more united. Anybody who is, against Fujimori can get behind the Roberto Sanchez and Juntos por Peru coalition. This is a coalition that even brings sectors from the ultra left, such as this militant group that is led by Antaro Humala, the brother to Ollanta Humala, former president. Whose their ideology is ethno-cacerismo, which is a much more militant outlook of indigenous nationalism in the Andes. But yeah, for Bolivia, to compare to, in contrasting, Bolivia is much more of a better position than it was back in 2025 when I was witnessing it, how politically divided it was when Luis Arce was president and when the MAS party was running a different candidate opposed to Evo Morales, because Morales left the party and formed his own party. One of the youngest was Andronico Rodriguez, who ran in a separate coalition for presidency. And so the left-wing candidates, this Eduardo Castillo, from representing MAS in 2025 in that election, and the other left-wing candidate, Andronico Rodriguez, who served as president for a short time and I've seen him before here in Los Angeles once for a political conference. That actually Fiorella was too. But yeah, it is very different from how it was in Bolivia, where we had seen two right-wing candidates coming into rising to the second round. And people were really just frustrated economically in Bolivia. Bolivia is the heart of South America, where it is a landlocked country because of the War of the Pacific, and Chile stole their land, including Peru's land. And so that made Bolivia a landlocked country. And so they don't have fuel, that much of producing of oil, drilling and such. They do a lot of mining. Of course, the lithium, of which I visited the Salar de Uyuni. That's where the tourist site is, but it's where the lithium is underground, the salt flats. But yeah, the Bolivians were divided electorally when it came to the MAS party candidates. They were against them. They were voting in nulo in favor of Evo Morales' electoral strategy, which that didn't work out, and we were resulted with Tuto and Rodrigo Paz. So when it comes to Peru's, it was going to be looking like that. There was a lot of misreporting when it came to Peru's election, saying that Porky Pig is now going to be in second place, and Fujimori in first. And she still is in the lead, of course, but internationally, when you look at the electoral votes, she and Porky's party, Renovación Popular, and her party, Fuerza Popular, were is basically neck to neck in from the votes in the diaspora, they tend to be more right-wing leaning, and so that's what they rely on. Of course, they rely on the Lima's vote. That's where all the Lima elite live, beyond, besides just in Miami and such. But they are very much relying on the Lima votes. That's why it voted majoritively of Renovación Popular. And so that's why Porky was very frustrated that his party got a lot of votes, but not for his presidential ticket.
Paulo, let everybody know where they can find you and where they can see your work. And I want to thank you for coming back on today. Great insight, my man.
Yes. They can find me on Instagram, Telegram, and as well as Upscroll as the Peruvian Chasqui. And the other one is also Los Renderos of the Redes, which is in my bio. That's where we are constantly getting reports from our compatriots back home. They are sharing about what's going on in the front lines. And we're currently covering how the history, the solidarity between Peru and Palestine, which stretches for 81 years since the Palestinians came to move to Cusco, and so this is very much a time period to talk about all these fronts and unite these fronts together.
They got to watch out. The Israelis are coming in now again. They came there years ago, and now here come the Israelis are following them. They're like, all right, we're just gonna follow the Palestinians wherever they go. It's crazy. Paulo, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, Paulo. I'll be speaking to you soon as I head over to Cusco, guys. So.
Are you going to be
Wonderful.
Are you going to be in? I don't know if you want to tell people. Are you going to be in Peru for the second round or no?
Oh no, he's
Me?
not. No,
you. Yeah, I'm voting in the diaspora. I have to vote in my area. This is how they function. You have to vote in a certain area.
Well, then I will not be taking you for Peruvian sushi. It was the best sushi I ever had in my life was in Lima. You're not invited. Stay in the diaspora and vote. We'll go eat over there, my friend. We love you, brother.
All right.
Talk to you
soon. To all your work here. All right. Thank you.
Man, thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
Fam, are we starting right in? Are we starting right in with who's running the show? You running this here? You taking over the engineering duties? Am I that bad that you got to just jump on in?
Bad. You're pretty bad. Yeah,
it's hard to do two things at one time. You should know that. I mean, please.
I do like a million things at one time, but not when it comes to engineering the show. So I will have some.
Exactly. And not when it comes to making coffee, because I told people the story of coffee in Washington, D.C., the way you failed at that.
I didn't know the coffee filter wasn't there. It was
just right in the dishwashing rack right next to it there and stuff. Yeah. And the fact that when you put the coffee beans in there, you should have said right away, this doesn't seem right. That's what's going on. Guys, if you want to help us out, our co-producer, Gabrielle Freedom, is there sharing links, and you can tap into that at any time. We haven't seen Fred Edward today or some of the other people, but we've seen a lot of the people who've been around from the get-go. Gabrielle Freedom is one of those people. She is one of our co-producers, and she helps out a lot on the show, and she's giving you the links to where you can send us some love if you are in a position to help out the show. So please do so. Fam, we're going to start right into the second section.
Yeah.
So let me bring this into play. Here we go.
Guys, so Bolivia has been under attack. We saw what happened, as Paulo mentioned, right, during the fight between Arce and Evo and that whole split. And then, of course, they got a right-wing U.S.-backed president. And again, when we say right-wing, we say U.S.-backed because they're all U.S.-backed. I mean, this guy's actually from Spain.
Yeah.
And he's very much in line with Javier Milei. In fact, Javier Milei has been trying to send military planes, trying to send tear gas for the Bolivian government to use. And so this is what happened in the last few hours. And I'm going to be covering this. You follow Sovereign Media. They're going to be covering this with me. But so the United States, this is what Evo claimed a couple days ago, right? The United States ordered the government of Rodrigo Paz, the current president, to carry out a military operation with the support of the DEA and the U.S. Southern Command to capture or kill me. This is not news to us. We know the DEA is the one that pretty much are the drug traffickers, right? And U.S. Southern Command has been there. Laura Richardson, the other one, whatever her name was, Samantha Power, all of these people have always had their hands in Latin America, right? And so he said, among the promoters of the action are the former Minister of Government under Gonzalo Sanchez de Lozada, who fled to Miami after the Black October massacre in 2003, Carlos Soros Sanchez Berzain, and the Vice Minister of Social Defense, Ernesto Justiniano, who is in Washington. Prior to that, the government is waging an intense campaign of defamation, insults, and baseless accusations. They're accusing him of raping a girl, right, a young lady, which is interesting because if the Americans cared at all about raping young women and children, they would go prosecute the people in the Epstein files, but they're not doing that. With advice from foreign experts in dirty war and fake news, such as Argentine Fernando Cerimedo, sent to Bolivia by right-winger Javier Milei, whose dirty operations have already been exposed by honest Bolivian journalists. They are in the tropics. 9th Army Division, Commander Colonel Franz Andrade Loza, the government promised to promote him to general and appoint him the commander of the armed forces if he takes out Evo. The F-10 unit under the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, General Victor Hugo Valderrama, led by Lieutenant Colonel Carlos Jimenez Ortuño, former aide to Janina Áñez as Minister of Defense. Janina Áñez, remember that neo-Nazi that was in power. Fernando Lopez, the CITE, paratrooper military unit, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Santives Teban, who was imprisoned for the massacres of the Áñez regime in Sacaba and Sencata, and the CIE 298 Army Intelligence Company, whose members trained at Cotapachi to carry out operations in the tropics. F-10 snipers from the Chayapata Ranger Regiment from the Ingavi 7th Sajama Battalion. Dozens of soldiers were sent, including lieutenant colonels, captains, lieutenants, and non-commissioned officers. So he says the Bolivian military will be under the command of U.S. Marines and Paraguayan DEA agents who have no qualms about massacring brothers and sisters living in the tropics. Mm-hmm. Guys, the DEA is all over the South America and Latin America in general, but right now, South America, they have been, remember, they invaded Ecuador under the pretense of narcotic issues, drug issues, the same kind of issues that the same kind of threats and accusations they've had against Nicolas Maduro, right? And against Gustavo Petro. Now, think about this in the context of Honduras Gate, right? Where these journalists uncovered, Canal Red uncovered the audio files where Juan Orlando Hernandez fam is literally talking about creating a media that is centered and dictated by the United States to promote narratives against anti-imperialist left-wing governments, and how Javier Milei was actually donated $350,000 to Honduras for this cause, and going after the Zelayas and Xiomara Castro, and pretty much going after Gustavo Petro and the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and pretty much anybody that is really in the way of this takeover. So in the context of all of that, here comes Evo Morales revealing this. And fam, before I get your take on this, right, here are the leaked documents, if you can pull that tweet up from Ali Vargas, who is Bolivian and British. Mm. And he said, breaking U.S. armed forces and Bolivian police are preparing a joint operation to kidnap Evo Morales and massacre the indigenous communities in the vicinity that are protecting him. Police officers opposed to the plan have leaked documents confirming the operation. You guys can read these documents, but in it, the DEA is named. The certain troops that have U.S. command and U.S. involvement are named. And so this was a big deal. And this is directly coming, of course, from Bolivia. I would trust the sourcing from people in Bolivia. And so this is where all of that is coming from, right? From these unions, from the miners, from the people that work in these areas that are also fighting against the capture of lithium, the selling of it to Argentina and to multinational corporations that are basically Zionist and US led. So Bolivia is fighting to keep its sovereignty and to keep its assets, its resources in its country.
Guess who else we have to mention right now, because I don't know if everybody remembers the first Trump administration, what happened in Bolivia with the whole Evo Morales. And once again, this is why I'm against term limits. I'm against what the United people say, term limits, that's the solution. And, Terry Matson would tell us, she's like, no, in Latin America, if they have a strong president, if they have somebody they want to keep in there, they should have the right to do that. If somebody's doing a great job for your company and you want to retain the services, you can't say, oh, you've done too good of a job for 8 years. Let's just take a chance and go elsewhere. Or, in Mexico, they only have 1 6-year term. And I think a lot of people, I think Claudia Sheinbaum has a lot of support, but I still think people would have voted for AMLO over her if he could have ran again. If they have a strong leader and they want to retain him, they should. The people of Bolivia wanted to do that with Evo Morales, but the United States said no. And who was talking backdoor, ladies and gentlemen, with the opposition in Bolivia? Well, that guy who happens to be, he was a senator there then, but he happens to be the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. So we come into Trump administration, second administration again. We see all these things, the empire trying to completely take Bolivia and the workers coming in from the outer rims to come in this fight, the empire. This is like the Star Wars movies over here, rebel scum. But Marco Rubio is now the Secretary of State, and everything he's trying to advance. I mean, he's the perfect front man for the Gusano movement in Latin America. And it doesn't surprise me that we see all that stuff. And I think we're going to hear more from Marco Rubio in the future. So we have to watch what that lying piece of shit is going to say, fam.
Yeah, I mean, look, the United States is overextended. I mean, they haven't stopped, right? They went from Venezuela to Ecuador. Now they're in Bolivia. They're putting their hands in Peru. They also are planning on Cuba, right? And so this is bad. So let's go ahead and show this. So these are the military forces in Bolivia are confronting the people who are mobilizing against the economic crisis, because Bolivia is facing low wages, inflation, austerity, just a very destabilized economy right now. And so they're demanding, their number one demand, fam, because as you know, in every protest and every mobilized event manifestation, there's a list of demands, or there are some demands, right? And the demand of these people is that the US-backed president, Rodrigo Paz, says, hey, I'm going to resign, and steps off power. That's what they want. That's like their main ask. They also are asking for the mining and the lithium and the companies to stay within Bolivia, and for the multinational corporations to get out. And so these are the people that work here, right? These are the people that work in the mining industry. So what happens when the people that work in the mining industry say, we're not going to work, we're going to stop, we're not going to do this anymore? That is huge. Yeah. That is literally what we should be doing in the United States. This is a national paro, right? Yeah. We say paro here, but it's a national, it's paralyzing all of the main industries of Bolivia, as Paulo just said, which are mining and stuff. And I like that he pointed out the uranium there, because that's rarely talked about. So this really puts a halt to the pockets of these multinational corporations that are waiting to line up their pockets. And remember, who said, "Well, coup who we want to coup"? Elon Musk, right?
Yep. Yeah. And by the way, this is more about just stopping the empire from coming in and trying to take complete control. This is also about protecting that resources. The miners understand that. They know that I'm saying that, at the end of the day, a lot has to do. The reason why the empire is spending extra money and extra time in Bolivia is because they know they're part of that lithium triangle. And it is kind of good that you also brought up the uranium. It's more than just, because sometimes we get fixated on one. I can, and you always kind of put me in my place, fam, that it's more than just lithium. There's other minerals there too as well. And we know too as well, the making the dollar dominant is also another thing. All these the American dollar could be used a lot in Latin America for a reason, because they are plugged into the global economy, and the United States wants to make sure of that. Do you want me to go to the next tweet real quick, fam? Because it's from Telescore. So or do you want me to play? Do you want me to play any of the video?
Yeah, can you play the video and I'll translate as it plays
of the Telescore one?
Yeah, because it's in Spanish. Lower it a little bit.
All right, let me look. Fam, I'll lower you.
Okay, so I'll read some of this before you play it. So social organizations in the Canani sector of La Paz, Bolivia are demanding the resignation of President Rodrigo Paz. The demand is framed within the context of growing wave of protests, strikes, and road blockades. They are blocking the roads, and they're blocking a lot of things. They're blocking the road to the airport. They're blocking everything. And the what they use to do this is very inspiring. And we could all learn from the Bolivians right now, the Bolivian indigenous people, because this is an indigenous-led movement, which is why they hate it even more, by the way. It's like there is so much, people think like racism in the United States is huge. No, racism in the likes of Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Peru against the indigenous people is like otherworldly. I mean, they like, I have seen Peruvians, and we saw it with Janine Añez, right? When we see that they look like their skin is like a shade lighter than these people, and they're like, oh, these cholos or these whatever, like they'll just rail against them. But these are the people that are standing between the United States and Israel, taking all of your resources, motherfuckers. These are the only people that are doing anything at all to keep the Zionists, U.S. of Epstein, from taking all of the wealth of these countries for themselves. Okay, so if anybody has anything to say about these people, it should be praise. It should be understanding. It should be actually copying what they're doing. We should all be taking notes. I mean, this is how you do it. If you stop working and if you refuse to participate in the system, you break that system. I mean, I think one of the latest tweets by Ollie was like, this is not gonna last long. This isn't gonna last long. They're stopping the economy. You can't hold out for that long. This is a big deal. We should take notes. So go ahead, fam.
I think too, this is about, and this is what you had talked about, you're not going to vote your way out of this. I think the Bolivians know that. And I think they're going to go for like a full on complete, let's blow it up and start it all over, new constitution. Here we go. I wonder how that's going to play in the capital of Bolivia. You know what I'm saying? With some of the people, Bolivia has their own oligarchs too. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. And once again, these countries are not a monolith, right? So many of the people that, I've witnessed, the Venezuelans here and the Nicaraguans here in the United States, they are actually anti-government, right? The Venezuelans are anti-Chavista and the Nicaraguans are anti-Sandinista. But some of them are not just in it for their own interest. It's the propaganda that's played out for so long. And when you see hard times in your own country, sometimes you're going to blame that government the way the Cuban people sometimes blame the Cuban government. I think the majority of Cubans, the majority of Nicaraguans, the majority of Venezuelans, and I haven't been to Venezuela, I've been to the other two countries. The majority of the people still see what's going on. They see the empire going in there trying to take over, so they're against that. But there are going to be some people who are going to still go the other way. They're going to be propagandized successfully, the way people are propagandized successfully in the United States. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over here. But I do think we are moving towards that. Let's blow it up and start from scratch, a new constitution and everything. And that means there will be some form of civil war. And that civil war will be able to exist because the United States will fund and support their dog in the fight in a civil war. You know what I'm saying, fam? So I'm gonna play this video and I'll keep it low so you can translate.
Yeah.
Here we go. You're watching the TruthWire here with Fiorella, Pasta, CheeseSlice, and all you loved ones in the chat.
Está llegando la marcha por la vida al sector de Conani, La Paz, señores.
So they're saying the March for Life is arriving in the sector of Conan. You can put it. Yeah.
Rodrigo Paz Pereira.
They're protesting against Rodrigo Paz Pereira. They have created a human chain link, as you can see. They want to march until the objective is complete of ousting Rodrigo Paz. Look at that.
When you see the hats, fam, when you see the hats.
So they speak mostly Quechua here, just like even though Bolivia and Peru are two different countries, and you have aspects of this in Argentina and Chile as well, that's the Andes, right? You have the Andes corridor. They speak a lot of the same language, Quechua and Aymara. And I have zero knowledge of Quechua. When I went to Cusco, actually, they teach you some words, but I know that they used to teach Peruvians Quechua until like I would say 30 years ago, but it just stopped being used, especially in Lima. So they started teaching people English. And so when I spoke to a tour guide recently, she told me, yeah, well, that's where the money is, right? So they've stopped teaching them the indigenous language, and now they're teaching them English because, you know, it's what people. It's like the demand. But you know, it's an Andean, one of the most indigenous countries. The two most indigenous countries are Bolivia and Peru. So this is a tweet from Bolivia Libre. It says, when people say enough Bolivia, the army flees from the dynamite cartridges of the miners. Human tides of Bolivians advance on La Paz, El Alto, and the main cities. Red ponchos, the COB, and the unions march alongside the miners armed with dynamite. Fam, you posted this, right?
Yep. I want to show these pictures and stuff because it's kind of crazy the way they see the miners using the dynamite, fam, that they get for the mines against the military. And I think that the number one thing that we will see change, and you'll know that this revolution the people will win the revolution, right, is when the military will start turning on the government. And that's what I think we have to watch for, because I know there'll be a lot of military people that say enough is enough. Where did we see before when the military started turning on the police that were being oppressive to the people? Was that in Bolivia the first time, I think? It could have been. So we have to watch for that. But let's take a look.
It's already happened.
Here they come, marching in. I love this, fam.
Así están los jóvenes, ya están ya armándose ya. Bien, bien, jóvenes. Este no es poco. No es piano, es poco ya, hermanos. Así son los jóvenes que están ya a nivel ciudadano, ya está pronunciándose de la guerra ya. Una guerra civil.
This is like a civil war, he says. And it could erupt into fully that, right? Like this is not good for Bolivia, but they have to do something. Otherwise, they're going to get robbed of their resources. And they know that. You know, they know that's what's happening.
Fam, I don't know. I think I put this in there because I wanted you to translate for me and the audience out there what they're saying. So I'll keep it nice and low. But we have this tweet here as well. And I'll read it in English real quick. Either you resign or we'll kick you out. The Bolivian miners warned the far-right president, Rodrigo Paz, who is rumored to have requested asylum in Spain, the country of his origin. Far-right wing folks have no place in Latin America, even if the little king from the north wants to impose them. They shall not pass. And fam, I want you to translate a little bit of this. I'll keep it semi-low. Guys, you're watching the TruthWire.
It's a protest of miners. Resign or we will get you out forcefully. He has not kept his promises for any sector. Thousands of miners were protesting. The police put tear gas while miners launched these rocks. You know, the rocks with like a slingshot type of thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like akin to Palestinian resistance. I mean, in terms of like, they don't have weapons. They have rocks and slingshots. The government said that 2 people died for not receiving medical attention. They're blaming Evo Morales for promoting these protests.
Of course they are.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy? Like you talk about the way it is in Palestine, the same way it is here. It's always the poor people. And that's what we have. We need to have a revolution of the poor people. And I'm not saying that all the rich need to hang and stuff like that, but there are a lot of people, fam, stop. There are a lot of people who, who really game the system and were a part of stealing. It's one thing
fam,
if you.
I could go to Calabasas and, line up certain people there that don't need to have these ridiculously huge mansions. I mean, it's like there's a difference between I will say
wealthy
like
and
between
rich,
millionaires
right?
and billionaires. Like now,
Yeah.
like you have people that basically own islands, like Epstein. That really it's really the wealth disparity is insane right now. Like I think that eventually happens, and it usually cycles, right? I was reminded the other day that it's been over 100 years since the Bolshevik Revolution. Like we're due for a revolution, fam. I don't know.
Well, I don't know when we've ever had one. Our revolution was for white men to come on over and fucking grab more land and using slaves to fucking.
It was for religious freedom, fam.
Yeah, in my ass. Bolivia is coming back, it says. The miners have arrived at dawn to take the government house, fam. So like I said, I just wanted to show more video proof that they're surrounding the house. Can you imagine if the Americans would come together and go against the Epstein class, that they wouldn't play this team sports mentality, that we would march to the Capitol, surround the White House, surround the Congress, and all the douchebags. Maybe let Thomas Massie go. I don't know. Maybe let Rand Paul live in a prison for a while, but he does take Israeli money, so that's a problem from him and stuff like that. But for the most part, march everybody out, right? French Revolution style. Republican, Democrat, no. If you gain the system, you're out of there. And watching these old people that just want to play into this, they think they're like, the way, I'm just going to show the video real quick and keep the volume low. But the way that Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, the way they see themselves necessary. Just watching Schumer walk in the streets the other day, it's disgusting. Get the fuck out, you senile old piece of shit, and give us back our government. And that's what I'm so fearful right now is these Democrats coming back into play to play the, my friend Phil, I love him, but he was also talking, it was so much better with Obama than it was Donald Trump and stuff. It's like, no, you're not seeing the problem. The reason why we have Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, one word, the Democrats. That's why we have Donald Trump, because of the Democrats. That's why. And fam, I have another one really quickly too as well, just to show the scale of things. Once again, here they are. In Bolivia, the workers, peasants. I love that word, peasants. Not because I want to see people poor, but I love when there's a peasant uprising, because there's a reason they're peasants. And I don't want to hear this thing. It's because they're lazy, addicted to drugs. They're doers and people who are takers. It's just a bunch of takers. No, the system is rigged against the poor. The resources are stolen by the 1% and the elites. They have a whole system that is based on keeping people poor. And once again, we are one people on one planet. Whatever comes out of the ground should benefit all of us, not some individuals. Workers, peasants, school teachers, indigenous people, and truck drivers have been paralyzing the country. You talked about this for more than 2 weeks against the neoliberal policies of Rodrigo Paz's government, and Western media don't even report on it, fam. It hasn't been on Fox News, fam. It hasn't been on Fox.
14 de mayo de 2026, La Paz, Bolivia.
This was 3 days ago, no? Or 4 days ago or something.
Look at the size of that, fam. Can you imagine that by the White House and Congress? They would shit their pants.
They'd nuke us.
They would.
What do you mean?
They would drone its own. America would drone its own people.
Of course they would. I love this music.
Isn't that awesome, though? I don't give a shit.
Awesome.
Show us the way.
So another thing that happened, fam, if you can pull it up, I'll read the caption before the video. So the Bolivian workers have seized the airport located near Evo Morales' residence, Chimore. Our airport, the runway has been occupied in order to stop U.S. planes or helicopter from landing, right? Because they don't want them to land and then go get Evo. And the leaked documents, he said below show U.S. forces and Bolivian police have planned a raid to kidnap Evo. So
we saw those before. This is Ali's second part where they're taking the airport itself, fam. They took the thing. You were talking about the road to the airport. No, these sons of beeswaxes, you old dog, you devil, you indigenous Bolivian people, they took the airport. Go, you ain't landing here. You ain't getting our leader, right? And you ain't getting your troops on the ground. You want to bring them in? Bring them in on ground. So that's what the Americans are going to do. They're just going to fly people into other countries and try to get them bust in. And you know what I'm saying? And that's what's going to happen, fam, because they're not going to stop. The American empire is not going to stop. They've been getting away with this stuff for so long. Why would they stop? And also, this is your next tweet, fam.
Okay, so it says the Bolivian people, an example to lead, continue protesting, demanding the resignation of Rodrigo Paz. This is today. They also demand that transnational corporations withdraw from Bolivia, urging they won't allow the privatization of the country's natural resources. There you go.
Sorry for the volume.
Red ponchos.
Look at that, fam. It's the hats. Fam, why haven't you got, for my birthday, I can't believe you didn't get me a hat. You can see where fam's priorities were. You know, I got a cigar and I got some Pisco. That's what I got from fam, which I love. Don't get me wrong. You know, Pisco sours are bomb. But fam, you know I want a hat.
You can't get a hat until you
so I'll never forget that.
You can't do it until you go to Cusco.
All right. You know? We got to go to Cusco then.
That's where you get the red poncho.
Yeah.
Our friend Ignacio has the red poncho, by the way, but you don't have it because you need to go get it.
I understand my assignment now.
So this is Gustavo Petro, who, you know, he's not always been
sorry.
He's not always been, you know, sometimes he says some of the dumbest shit, right? Gustavo Petro, but he actually was supportive towards Evo Morales, towards Bolivia recently. So this is what he said. So first I'm going to read what Petro said, and then we'll go back to what Evo said. So he said this on May 17th. He said, Bolivia, let me see if I can translate. Okay, so I'll have
it here. It's up.
Do you have it? Okay. So Bolivia is experiencing a popular insurrection. It is a response to geopolitical arrogance. Latin America is a diverse and different civilization. It cannot be homogenized from any corner of the planet. Latin America and the Caribbean must be heard by the world, looking straight ahead in peace and speaking with frankness. My government is willing, if invited, to seek peaceful formulas for resolving the Bolivian political crisis. There should be no political prisoners anywhere in the Americas. We must build a deep, multicolored democracy in our civilization that dates back 60,000 years in the Americas, but also comes from the ancestral Mediterranean, Black Africa, and the deserts of the Sahara. The legend said that the American jaguar would be awakened if the condor was attacked, and that the jaguar has awakened in popular consciousness. In Panama, I spoke with the president of Bolivia about his father, Paz Zamora, the first Latin American progressivism, and his time in exile in Bogota, in Panama, where he received visits from the General Torrijos and the M19 with Carlos Vidales, the son of the poet. May that memory fill him today with the love for his people and open the door to dialogue to transform Bolivia into an ever deeper and more sovereign democracy, profoundly Latin America. And so then after that, Evo Morales responded to that and said, President Gustavo Petro, thank you for understanding the true process that Bolivia is going through and not following the false narrative that is being spread. Thank you for defending the sovereignty of Latin America against the arrogance of imperialism and for your offer to accompany the search for peaceful solutions in my homeland. So there is like a little bit of an olive branch. Again, you know, Petro has not always been supportive of Venezuela or
we need to have that conversation. India. Right? Like, listen, I don't mean to step on your toes, but I want to hold you right there because this is a conversation because you started off this with saying Gustavo Petro isn't always the best. Lula is not always the best. But there are certain leftist groups out there that would bastardize Gustavo Petro, that would bastardize Lula as a way of supporting the other side to get that conservative kind of support, right? So in other words, they don't have to support the conservative side or the populist right side or the right-wing side. They just have to bastardize. And they also did it with Gabriel Boric, right? Too. That's another one too as well. how do you square that circle of saying that these people aren't the best? I believe that Lula is a vaccine salesman. I really do. I believe he's bought into that stuff. I believe that Claudia Sheinbaum has bought too much into the technocratic world and stuff like that. But we understand why she's doing it. I understand why Lula's doing it. They're not going to be the perfect candidate, but still, they are the choice of those people for a reason, because all these three people, whether it be Gustavo Petro, and we heard the Communist Party of Colombia say point blank, and I know that Fiorella is not lying, right? Because I trust and believe in Fiorella. When the Communist Party of Colombia, the head of the Communist Party, says Gustavo Petro is not the ideal candidate. He's the one that's the right candidate for right now. He's worked inside the establishment long enough to move the needle to where Colombians need to move it to, right? Lula, who had done so much financially for pretty much Brazil, put them on the economic world map. You know what I'm saying? And the advances he's done comes from labor, right? Not the best candidate on everything, but still the choice of the people, the majority of people. Obviously, there's more of a split right now. And this is why I got mad when I thought that the Supreme Court of Brazil removing what's his name? And I'm not a big fan of his, but removing Bolsonaro from running in the election, I thought was wrong. If that's what the people want to do, they should be able to run him. They should have never stopped Lula the first time. You know, those are my beliefs. But how do you square that circle, fam? Because there is a group out there that has bastardized these people as a way of supporting the other side without supporting it. But Gustavo Petro, who doesn't always say the right thing, but he's been consistent here, and he's been pretty consistent on supporting the workers of Latin America. How do you square that circle when they aren't the perfect candidate?
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing how now, right? You don't have a choice. I mean, you're under attack. I think the same way that it's, the attacks by Washington have brought people in Iran together, people who were opposed to the Ayatollah, right? Who were opposed to the Iran's policies when it came to social issues. What happened after Trump attacked? Well, they ended up coming together because they realized who the enemy was. And we've seen this happen time and time again. We've seen this happen in Lebanon as well, where we're seeing, Hezbollah defend the country while the government of Lebanon is pretty much selling itself to the Israelis. And people are saying, wait a minute, so who's defending us? It's Hezbollah. So in the same way, where you're seeing Latin America under attack, what people have to realize is, including people like Gustavo Petro and others, that who is attacking you? How can you diplomatically negotiate with the likes of Donald Trump when he's threatened your life? He's threatened the lives of other world leaders. He has taken out world leaders like Soleimani, right? He has killed. They have gone after world leaders and killed them. So when you're under this threat and you're seeing really who is threatening you and who is pursuing you, then it makes it easier to have a more clear stance. And I think it is taking that for a lot of Latin American countries to realize, hey, who's coming in, who's trying to take over, who's, it's happening, especially with Israel, where people are realizing throughout the region, what exactly is Israel doing here? Why are they here? We may not be leftist, but we don't like that Israel's here, and we like that these people are standing up to Israel in the United States. This is not right. So what this is doing, what Trump's pursuit of colonizing essentially Latin America is doing, is it's bringing a lot of people together to really see what the United States is fully. Because I think a lot of people are even right now still under the impression that working with the United States brings prosperity or brings democracy or brings, opportunities for business. But the more Donald Trump and his administration, and Marco Rubio especially, do this, the more they actually show people who they actually are. And I think that's the way to handle that.
I think the best thing to look at is in the race, or who becomes popular, especially in Latin America, the number one rule, who is the more anti-colonialist representative there? You know, Bolsonaro had this problem because he was so close to the Bannons and the Trump administration. And I mean, under Lula, and you can complain about some of the things he's done or whatever. And I know there are people inside Brazil who are like kind of pissed at Lula for certain things, but still, he is now made China one of the biggest trade partners out there. That is something that Bolsonaro refused to do because he was being pushed by the Bannons and the Trump administration to break off the B from BRICS, right? You know, and that meant that and once again, China's not perfect about everything and everything like that, but that meant that there was a lot of poverty and people starving within Brazil. Now, I know they tried to use the excuse, well, you know, it wasn't Bolsonaro's fault for the COVID-19 and he had to be the president over those times, but there were people within his own government that were pissed off. You know, I remember Camilla showing me this article that I wrote that usually the bourgeoisie lines up right with the right wing in Latin America, but that wasn't the case because there were a lot of people within the bourgeoisie class that were nervous about Bolsonaro, and they thought that he was way too much of a pro-colonialist, too tied to the Western Empire, that they were willing to take a shot back with Lula coming in there because he had done so well financially for them. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw certain people rage against Lula, you know what I'm saying, that consider themselves leftist, it made me question. I'm like, well, what are you saying? You're pointing out the negativities of guys, but the alternative is Bolsonaro and a right-wing pro-imperialist government that's pretty much just letting the Americans just walk right on in and control Brazil the way they have in the past. It's the furthest thing away from the closest bet in Brazil last time to national sovereignty for the people of Brazil was Lula da Silva. As much as I don't like him when it comes to the vaccines. And you know, and I'll say this again, this is a blind spot for a lot of leftists out there, you know? It's the vaccines. They saw America pushing the vaccines on everybody else, and they were like, oh, if they're giving it to the white man, then it must be good for the brown man too. So let's get some of that vaccine love. Well, that was the sign out there where I think a lot of white people have to understand that the ruling class in America hates you too. Right? They want less people on this planet, the Malthusiast, and there are too many white people for them too. Now, they do give white people privileges over every single other fucking race and ethnicity out there because that's what helps with their divide. But when you understand that, it's like I told my Jewish friend the other day, my pro-Zionist Jewish friend, Eli from the barbershop. I'm like, the thing that really drives me crazy about you, Eli, is that you don't understand that Netanyahu doesn't give a fuck about you. He doesn't give a damn about you. He might tell you you're special and everything like that, but at the end of the day, he doesn't care about you. He just cares about his pro-ruling class getting everything. So, of course, he's going to make you feel that you're more special and that you're a victim and you're hated because you're Jewish and stuff, because you're playing along right into his fucking game. At the end of the day, the ruling class hates everybody. Their privileges that are handed out are to keep the people divided. And I learned this from Reverend Annie Chambers, who said that shit when she talked about it, like when they had fought to, you know, she said they joined together, you know, the poor black groups with the KKK against the state to get their unemployment and get it back when the governor canceled it, that they gave in because they realized that, oh my God, like when the people come together, they can really get what they want. But what happened was they re-triggered the separation by giving the white family more than the black family to once again add a divide because they understand it works. You know what I'm saying? So these are things I think we need to keep in mind as race and religion are always weaponized.
Yeah. I mean, if you're wasting your time just, you know, going after different people and saying, well, I don't like, you know, this and I don't like that and I don't like it's just, you know, it's not going to happen, I think. But when the need is there, right, when it's life or death, people tend to put aside those differences because they don't have another choice.
Yeah.
So
here, I got this here for you, Fim. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is very important. I'm going to read it, but this is the Bolivian President Paz.
You want to read that first? Let me hit that first.
He openly welcomed Honduras gate and well, I was reading the thing. He openly welcomed Honduras gate implicated Zionist Argentine President Javier Milei's military aid via tear gas and aircraft. So this is what I was talking about. And the indigenous people were also preventing the aircraft and the aid for the military from getting there. They were blocking the landing strips. So the indigenous campesinos, they were even using the trees to prevent the aid from getting there. But look, this is what it is. This is Rodrigo Paz Pereira. He is the president of Bolivia. This is what he said to Milei. My deepest gratitude to President Milei for the invaluable support provided to Bolivia through the dispatch of the Hercules aircraft for humanitarian assistance tasks. This gesture of solidarity not only strengthens the historic bonds of brotherhood between our nations, but also represents vital relief for our communities in times of great need. We deeply value the Republic of Argentina's willingness to collaborate in protecting the lives and well-being of our people. Thank you, President. Meanwhile, they're sending him weapons and tear gas to be used against the people of Bolivia, and he's framing it as humanitarian aid. That is how psychotic these people are. Oh, it's humanitarian aid. Thank you for sending us weapons to use against our own people.
They're always trying to smuggle in weapons, the imperialists. They always do that. That's why, like right now in Cuba, Marco Rubio's like, we have all this aid. It's waiting to get to the government of Cuba stopping it. Well, are you saying that you would let it in without? Yeah, as long as it's a third party, as long as the government doesn't get to inspect it and look at it. They're always trying to send in guns and weapons. We learned this of Iran, Contra, and all these other fucking situations and stuff. That's why it was kind of cool. At the barbershop that I go to, right? The guy who owns it, Israeli Zionist, but he's a great guy.
I wouldn't be promoting the fact that you still
we have disagreements, and I use it as an opportunity to talk, and it's a barbershop, and there's a lot of other people we can debate and educate, and it's a safe place for me to say. They know that I'm an anti-Zionist, and I told them that from the get-go. I'm like, listen, I'm pro-Jew, anti-Zionist. I have a lot of great Jewish friends out here. But I don't agree with Zionism, right? And I've been the first person to teach me about anti-Zionism was Jewish people. So, I mean, my other guy, the guy who cuts my hair, his name is Ozzy. He's a Kurd from Turkey. And he even said that it was funny this time that the guns that were given by Trump, and he's more like under his breath, like, yeah, the Israelis doing this and this and that. I'm like, hey, man, take it easy. You're in Boca Raton. Keep your opinions to yourself. We'll talk around here. We have fun with it. But he was even laughing that the Kurds stole the guns this time that they were given to give to the Iranians, because that's what the aid is, ladies and gentlemen. It's weapons. It's weapons.
Fam, I have a feeling that when you go to Iran and when you go to Lebanon and you see what's out there, I think you're going to have a hard time going back and giving a Zionist your business after that. So I would encourage you to go and see why
it's not that I haven't go. Matters. It's once again, it's where our places that I understand they've been propagandized, and I believe that a lot of people have been propagandized, and I believe there's a lot of people on the fence that could be persuaded. I was in a different place one time after 9/11. I was blaming everybody, the Muslims. I was blaming Muslims for what happened on 9/11 because I was so ignorant to what was going on. I was so blinded, but now look where I'm at today. So, once again, it's you don't have patience for these people. I get it. I have patience for them, fam, because I believe they can be persuaded once they know the truth. But I'm losing patience for a lot of them. Get into this, fam. Read this over here, and then I'll read you can read what Evo Morales said about this. Go ahead.
Okay, so can we read actually what
Evo said first?
Evo said first, yeah.
Tim, I wish you would get some consistency on what you want to read first here and there. You know what I'm saying? You're having
usually you read the tweet first before you get into
the No. You just said last time I want to read what Evo said first. I had to click on. All right, go ahead, fam. I'm out.
So this is confirmed. The Bolivian government is already privatizing. This is confirmed by the Argentine Fernando Ceremedo, the expert in communications sent by Javier Milei and de facto minister of Rodrigo Paz Pereira. This is further proof of our denunciations regarding the handover of natural resources such as lithium to transnational corporations and the gifting of state-owned companies to the rich landowners and Bolivian oligarchs. So he's basically saying that Milei is working with the Bolivians to hand over the resources, right? And so this is what this guy, who is a Milei guy, said. Privatizing or closing takes months. Based on the Bolivian legislation, you should know that has already been initiated. So he said, so it's already being initiated. This is what Evo was saying. The CPE Paz, the president, proposed to modify and also take time for agreements. Now the left, we have been pushing them since the campaign. So basically confirming what Evo's saying. Just, the moves have been made to pretty much take these resources away from Bolivia. And of course, Milei is involved in all of this.
This is Whitney Webb stuff, fam. This is what she's been talking about for a long time, that they're in these areas because they want these minerals and they want these rare earth minerals for the fourth industrial revolution. This is about building what Catherine Austin Fitts would talk about is the control grid, right? It's about track and trace policies. Why do they want to know everything you do all the time, Pasta? They want it all. And that's what these data centers are for, right? They're to get these digital prints upon you that know exactly what you like, what you're doing, and record everything you're doing and then store it. So if they ever have to go back, what did Fiorella said? They have all the information stored, just like when Donald Trump brought in Larry Ellison on day 2, and he says, everything will be filmed, everything will be captured, we'll have it all. Nothing, crime will pretty much, they do it in the sense that they're stopping crime, fam. We got to record, we got to infringe on all your civil liberties and your privacy to stop crime. What's that Benjamin Franklin saying again about those who don't fucking, whatever the case he said? Here, fam, I'm going to put this up for you now too as well, because we are running a long time over.
Yep. Okay, so this is what the United States and Israel posted about Bolivia, right? So these are the on indigenous resistance, right? So let's read the Israeli one first, since it's on the left, fam. If you can click on that one. It says the state of Israel expresses its support and solidarity with the government and people of Bolivia, as well as with...
My bad. Sorry, fam.
As well as with President Rodrigo Paz, who was legitimately and democratically elected. We are following with concern the humanitarian situation caused by the riots and road blockades, which have led to shortages of food and essential supplies for the population. Israel supports the efforts of the Bolivian government to promote dialogue and preserve democratic stability in the country. No, so the shortages of food and essential supplies for the population happened first. And so the reason that they're protesting is literally in response to the repression that they're facing. It wasn't that they are causing their own food shortages. They are literally protesting against that. You Zionist psychopaths. Okay.
Hey.
In Bolivia, riots and blockades have created a humanitarian crisis, causing shortages of medicine, food, and fuel. This is from Washington. We condemn all actions aimed at destabilizing the democratically elected government of Rodrigo Paz. I wonder what they would say if it was Evo. Oh, that's right, that it wasn't democratically elected, and support it in its efforts to restore order to the peace, security, and stability of the Bolivian people. They literally copied each other. It's like two kids at school copying each other.
Culprits.
So that's the point, right?
Accomplices. Culprits.
They totally just copy each other.
Fam, we should have been in Bolivia for the election because we would have snuffed something out. But let me ask you a question. How do you feel about Arce today? I mean, Evo said that Arce was bought off, right? Like he was co-opted of sorts. He was captured. That split the left.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts about Arce now today?
I mean, I think that is the truth. I think that he shouldn't have pursued. He tried to go after Evo Morales. He tried to go after Evo Morales, and a lot of the people that are now, pretending that didn't happen, it happened, and it shouldn't have happened, and they should have stuck by the guy that mobilized the indigenous people, because the indigenous people were with Evo Morales. The majority of them were not with Arce. The majority of them were with Evo, and they were trying to protect him. And then they laid out these accusations that they never got any proof for, which is why he's not in prison. That
I mean, he was a man on the run for a while. He had to leave his country at one point. I remember that, and it's crazy because there were leftist opinions about what had happened, and I remember Camilla jumping into somebody saying something and like, no, you're completely wrong. What's going on over there? Like a lot of leftists got this wrong. You know what I'm saying, fam? A lot of leftist guys. I didn't know what to think because I was just watching it from afar and obviously seeing that, Arce came in. The first thing he did was go after the right-wing government to hold them accountable, to throw them in jail. So I thought Arce was just a continuum of Evo Morales, but the thing that it bothered me is that Evo wasn't running because Evo was the choice of the people. And it's what it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the show. If they find somebody they like, what's that?
They kept him from running.
Yes. If the Latin American people or any people feel somebody they have a leader that they like, that's a strong leader, and they want him to remain there. And Evo rejected it at first. Remember, he goes, I didn't want to, but he was pushed by the people. The people were like, no, we want you. We trust you. So you run the country. But I was a little bit skeptical when I saw that stuff, but I did think Arce was an extension of Evo. But seeing the way things played out, I mean, do you think this was a fair election because the left was split because they were propagandized and confused what was going on in Bolivia, fam?
It definitely wasn't a fair election. I mean, none of the last election where this guy got elected was definitely not a fair election. And Arce caused the split when they should have just voted for Evo because he wanted to be president. Yeah. And then, you ended up losing to a US-backed right-winger that's selling all of your lithium and all of your resources to multinational corporations. I mean, this is exactly why you don't do that. This is exactly why you come together and you do what you need to do. But that's not what happened. So, fam, let's move on because this is
the last tweet of the show, fam, because we got to go because I have to go myself. So.
Oh, okay. You have to go. Okay. So we're not going to talk about it. Okay.
No. We'll leave the Cuba stuff for Wednesday when Danny Shaw comes on. You know what I'm saying? We could do the Iranian section real quick, but it's just little. There's not really much to talk about. But I think we should just leave it with this because we're at 2 hours. But if you want it, we can do a quick update with the Iranian stuff. If we want.
Okay. So this is Evo Morales who's talking about. He said this most recently: invaders, plunderers of natural resources, merchants of death, and genociders like the USA and Israel. Plus 8 right-wing presidents subservient to North American imperialism and currently in free fall due to corruption and for destroying the economies of their countries, support the Bolivian government of Rodrigo Paz with the same old script, accusing the people rising up against the oppressors of conspiracy, terrorism, and drug trafficking. The eternal coup mongers, massacres, sellouts, and executors of Operation Condor have the cynicism to shout that democracy is at risk. Those who live off drug trafficking in their financial systems accuse the people's organizations of that evil. Those who impose a media blockade on the outrage speak of freedom of expression. Yep. So he's talking about the Israeli and American response to Bolivia. And I don't know how you could put that any better. They are the ones that are doing the repressing and the attacks, and they're literally acting like they're going to bring the solutions. I mean, it is disgusting. And you can feel the outrage in his writing, right? Yeah. And by the way, Evo Morales was one of the only Latin American leaders who literally called COVID and the pandemic a bioweapon.
In the beginning, from the jump, from 21 Jump Street, fam. I remember talking about that stuff, and Camilla was like laughing at me, like, "Yeah, Evo says shit like that," and I'm like, "No. This is where the left wing has to fucking pay attention over here, guys. The testing for mRNA for the Moderna vaccine was done by DARPA. Put it together, guys. Put it together. But that's the thing, fam. That's on my quest. Once again, having patience for the people out there to get it before not getting it. Let's just do the Iranian thing. We'll leave the Cuban section for Danny Shaw on this because he's coming on the show this
Wednesday.
This Wednesday. Okay, so fam, here is the latest tweet from a fam's favorite president of all time, of all presidents. Am I right when I say that, fam?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Donald J. Trump says for Iran, the clock is ticking. And they better get moving fast, or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence. President Donald J. Trump. Why didn't he say thank you for attention to this matter? What the fuck, fam?
I know, Trump. I miss your little sign out. You're not following.
He's not being consistent, fam. He is not being consistent. You want me to just bring up the next tweet real quick then?
Yeah. Bring up the next one. I mean, we know Trump's been saying Iran's time is up.
There's no timetable on this one, though, fam. There's no timetable. Now he's just talking in general. Remember, he was like, you have 48 hours. You have 3 days. He's not putting timetables up there. Something's going on.
I think he learned something.
Keep it
so
open.
This is, according to Fars News, U.S. has given Iran 5 conditions in response to Iran's proposal. No war compensation from the U.S., given up 400 kilograms of HEU to U.S., so that's the uranium. Iran can only have 1 nuclear facility to remain active. These are the U.S. demands for Iran. Not more than 25% of frozen assets to be unfreezed. Halting war on all fronts depends on negotiations. He said, I must say, this is beyond even wishful thinking. Iran's not going to accept that. Just, yeah, that's what the U.S. wants. No war compensation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Now the Saudis have put up something saying, oh, Iran is willing to negotiate, blah, blah, blah. But I'm getting that's just bullshit from the Saudis.
I don't know where our good friend Wyatt Reed is nowadays, my homeboy.
I hear he's in Lebanon.
He's in Lebanon? Oh,
I hear, yeah.
In Tehran, Iranian women are being taught how to field strip and assemble AKs. AK-47 assault rifles are made in Russia. Remember when the mainstream media told you that they desperately wanted to overthrow their government? And, I spoke to my source in, I'm going to just keep this low. It's just them kind of cleaning out getting the guns ready, whatnot.
They should do a how-to, because I want to know.
These women are ready to take up arms to defend their country. I mean, that just says a lot about what's going on in Iran. And they're still in the streets all the time. So one of the things and I'm just going to pause it right there. One of the things my friend and source told me about Iran is that the reason why they're consistently getting out in the streets, and this is the nationalist pro-Iranian government, sent people, the young people, the youth that are out there, is that they also want to make sure they occupy the space where the pro-monarchy, the Shah, which are very small, but once again, the Western media will use it and highlight it. So they're like, you're not going to fucking dupe the people anymore. We're the dominant people in the government here in the country. We're pro-nationalist. We love our country. We support our country. The monarchs could stay at home where they belong, right? And that's what they're doing out there right now in Iran, fam. Any final words as we close the show?
Yeah, I just want to, so we're going to look forward to this on Wednesday, but I do want to just bring this one up, fam. It says remove other media before putting on the screen.
I removed it, fam.
Okay, so
why do you have to show this here?
Because Cuba will defend itself if attacked. This is the
I saw that.
The foreign ministry has said it will exercise its right to legitimate defense. Why are you against showing that?
Because I thought it was a Raul Castro thing, and they want to really make believe that Raul Castro is the one who's running that country, and they want to bring him back to justice, is what they're saying. And I just
I don't show right-wing bullshit.
No, I know. I gotcha.
Yeah. So this is Cubans are saying that they're going to defend themselves, but again, guys, even with I'm not going to discuss the Venezuela stuff today, but people are getting pissed off, guys.
We'll discuss that
be emotional about this stuff. Like, it's already happened. These are countries that are being really pretty much extortioned, and we talked about it with Uncontrolled Opposition with Gloria and Jeremy and Vanessa. Like, this is not. It does not help to just say, oh, so and so sold out, blah blah blah. I told you, blah blah blah. Like, it's just like, we understand what it looks like, but there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes. And again, if you're going to look at what's going on in Venezuela, look at the people there right now. But Camilla is actually in Venezuela right now. So I'm sure she'll be reporting some things happening right now. But, there's a lot more going on than what it seems in a lot of these countries. So we'll be back on Wednesday with Danny Shaw. And I'm going to try to go to Cusco this week, to Pasac, to really investigate the influence of Zionists there. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you what day I'm going to go, but I am going.
Well, that's why I put up this message from our co-producer in the chat, Gabrielle Freedom. TruthWire fam, please stay safe, strong, courageous, independently and critically thinking, and as positive as possible. We love y'all. And she's talking about you right now when she says be safe. You know, we were in San Juan, Miraflores, the poor areas, and I was just like fucking walking around. I stuck out like a sore thumb. At one time, fam's like, "Are you okay? Do you want to leave?" And I was like, "Kind of."
He looks
I'm a
so
little nervous. I'm a little fucking nervous. We're walking around. It's just like I'm gonna get. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody was talking about, oh, the corruption. But I'm like, no, fam, we'll stay, and we stayed. I toughed it out. But yeah,
and then
we go to the areas.
We rode in a tuk-tuk.
Yeah, and somebody was mad that we rode in a tuk-tuk.
Yeah.
But we can only get out of that area with a tuk-tuk. And that's what they call those little vehicles that are in Cuba and Thailand, tuk-tuks. They drive all around. Thank you, Gabriel Freedom. And all the links in the chat are there to help us out. Fam, we'll be back on Wednesday with Professor Danny Shaw. We should talk about Venezuela. See, I met a woman over the weekend that was Venezuelan, anti-Chavista. But in the area where I said I'm done, I'm not talking to this woman, I'm not even giving her my phone number, is when she was praising Alex Saab being captured. I was like, that's my line. I can't deal with this. I lose my patience when we start demonizing people like Alex Saab, who've done so much for the people of Venezuela, that you're going to cheer that on. You are too far gone, right? And sure enough, she was wearing a Star of David too as well around her neck. So I said, nope, done with that one, fam. Too many red flags.
I don't know how you even give these people the time of day.
Well, she was with a Puerto Rican lady that was meeting my friend, and I had to. Sometimes you got to be a wingman, fam. You have to take on the flack, right? And if I would have just left my friend without any support, then he would have had to entertain, a friend over there. I took on the flack of the friend so he can concentrate on, the Puerto Rican girl who said she didn't like Bad Bunny, but when Bad Bunny started playing, we were dancing and going crazy, fam. I can't stop listening to Bad Bunny. I'm just hoping that when I go to Latin America for a certain gathering in late July, that we hear a lot of Bad Bunny music. I've already prepped Gloria by playing Gloria some Bad Bunny songs. Gloria was like, "Why is Bad Bunny in trouble? What did he do wrong?" I'm like, "He sang in Spanish during the Super Bowl." Is that all he did? I'm like, yeah, that was his big sin, that he sung in Spanish.
Yeah. So, fam, you better get ready. Shit's going down. All right?
I am.
All right.
I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get on the ground, boots on the ground, guys. All the way to help the show are there, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gabriel Freedom. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1s and 2s. Big ups to Jeremy Kuzmarov and Gloria Guillo. Go watch Uncontrolled Opposition with Fiorella. It's on the Pasta To Go channel. You can watch it in its entirety over there. And we'll see you back on Wednesday here on the TruthWire. Fam, it's time to say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Truth out.